It was the show that basically defined comedy for a generation, a masterclass in wit and warmth led by America's comedy sweetheart, Carol Burnett. For 11 fantastic years, millions of us tuned into The Carol Burnett Show every week. It felt like a safe space where you were guaranteed to laugh and the cast seemed like one big, happy family. And with 25 Emmys, it wasn't just a show, it was the gold standard, a place of pure joy. But that iconic chemistry, the easy laughter that poured out of our screens, was hiding a pretty complicated truth. One of these stars wasn't just a co-worker, he was a constant source of friction, a man whose on-set volatility and personal demons pushed the unflappable Carol Burnett to her absolute limit. This is the story of the rivalry Carol tried to keep under wraps for decades, and the man whose behavior nearly shattered the show's famously happy home. This story goes way beyond the blooper reels. It's a look at the pressure, the ego, and the genius that was bubbling just under the surface of one of the most beloved comedy shows in history. If you're fascinated by the real stories behind Hollywood's golden age, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss another story about the legends of television. To really get the tension, you first have to understand the paradise it was threatening. In the mid-60s, TV was a landscape of westerns, cop shows, and cookie-cutter sitcoms. The variety show existed, sure, but it was a man's world. And then came Carol Burnett. She had a contract with CBS that was both a golden ticket and a huge gamble, guaranteeing her a one-hour variety show. Producers were skeptical. They didn't think a woman could lead a show like that, worried she'd overshadow male guests or just not have the comedic stamina. But Carol had a vision. She didn't want a show built around one untouchable star. She wanted to create a repertory company, a team that played together in what she called her sandbox. Her philosophy was simple. If everyone felt safe enough to play, the comedy would be better, the chemistry would be real, and the audience would feel it. She famously told her cast on day one, "Let's just have fun, let's love each other," and for a while, it was perfect. The original cast was a finely tuned machine. You had the impossibly handsome Lyle Waggoner as the perfect announcer. You had the young prodigy Vicki Lawrence, who Carol discovered after Vicki wrote her a fan letter pointing out their uncanny resemblance. And then there was Harvey Corman. Harvey was, in so many ways, the show's secret weapon. As a classically trained actor, he brought a level of seriousness that grounded the show's wildest sketches. He could play anything. A stuffy politician, a spurned lover, a stressed-out husband. He saw himself as the ultimate second banana. His job was to be the perfect straight man, the rock that all the comedy could bounce off of. The chemistry between him and Carol was electric from day one. Right from the start, there was a chemistry, Burnett said. It's almost like a marriage. For the first few seasons, the sandbox was a dream. The show was a ratings monster and a critical darling. The cast genuinely seemed to love each other. But a new element was about to be thrown into this perfect mix. A force of chaotic energy so brilliant and so disruptive that it would both make the show legendary and push Harvey Corman, and by extension, Carol, right to the edge. That force was Tim Conway. Tim Conway didn't join as a regular until the 8th season, but his guest appearances, starting in season 2, were instantly legendary. While Harvey Corman was a master of the script, disciplined, precise, always hitting his marks, Tim Conway was a master of anarchy. He saw the script as a mere suggestion, a launch pad for wild improvisations. His main goal in any sketch wasn't just to make the audience laugh, but to make his co-star, Harvey Corman, completely break character. This wasn't mean-spirited. It was a game of comedic chicken between two masters. Conway knew that Harvey's professionalism was his weak spot. Harvey prided himself on his control, and Conway saw that control as a personal challenge. He'd rehearse a sketch one way, getting Harvey comfortable, and then, during the live taping, he'd go completely off script. One of the most famous examples was the dentist sketch. The script was simple. A patient, Harvey, is horrified to learn his dentist, Tim, just graduated. It was funny on its own, but what happened live became TV history. The story goes that Tim's ad-libs were inspired by his time in the Army, where a dentist accidentally numbed his own thumb with Novocaine. During the taping, Conway took that idea and ran with it. After a bit of dialogue, Conway's character accidentally jabs the Novocaine needle into his own hand. Harvey sees it and starts to lose it. Then Tim jabs his leg and falls to the floor, his body seemingly paralyzed. Harvey Corman, the ultimate professional, just falls apart. He tries to hide his face. He turns away, but it's no use. He is genuinely, uncontrollably, hysterically laughing. For 6 minutes, the audience is laughing not just at the sketch, but at Harvey laughing at the sketch. Conway loved to tell people for years that Harvey laughed so hard he actually wet his pants on stage. The sketch was a massive hit. It cemented Tim Conway as a genius, but it also set a dangerous precedent. The show's well-oiled machine now had a loose cannon. While the audience was roaring, Carol, the captain of the ship, must have felt a mix of joy and dread. The chaos was brilliant, but it was a direct attack on the discipline Harvey needed. As Tim's guest spots got more frequent, the cracks in Harvey's composure started to show, threatening to split the show's happy family right down the middle. The dentist sketch wasn't a one-off. It was the start of a relentless campaign by Tim Conway against Harvey Corman's sanity. With every appearance, Conway tried to top himself, finding new ways to make Harvey break. This on-screen battle became a beloved part of the show. But for Harvey, the laughter was hiding a very real frustration. Take the famous elephant story from a family sketch. Carol had a strict rule for these sketches: no breaking. She felt the humor came from the painful reality of the characters. But one night, Tim Conway, playing Mickey Hart, went on a long, rambling, and completely improvised rant about circus elephants. As Conway spun his ridiculous tale, you can watch the cast crumble. Vicki Lawrence bites her lip, desperately trying to hold it together. But the real target is Harvey. As Conway describes Siamese elephants joined at the trunk, Harvey's face is a mask of pure agony. He's fighting a losing battle, and finally, even Carol herself breaks. A rare moment for the audience, but a sign that no one was safe from Tim's chaos. Then there was the physical comedy. According to a widely told, though unconfirmed, story, Harvey had undergone a vasectomy the morning of a sketch where he and Tim were in a submarine. The sketch required Harvey to slide down a pole and land hard on the floor. As Conway later recalled with a grin, the landing was right on target, causing Harvey very real pain, which, of course, looked hilarious to an unaware audience. Another time, Conway played an excruciatingly slow sausage vendor while Harvey played a customer in a hurry. The sketch is a masterclass in timing, but it's also a kind of psychological torture, with Harvey's mounting frustration as the main event. This dynamic, Conway the prankster and Corman the flustered victim, defined their partnership. The audience couldn't get enough, but it was taking a toll. Harvey Corman was a natural worrier. He was a deeply insecure performer who, despite his 4 Emmys, felt the pressure of live TV immensely. He needed the script like a safety blanket, and Conway kept yanking it away. The tension started to bleed into the show's atmosphere. Harvey became moody and difficult. According to Carol's own memoir, he could become dark and withdrawn. It wasn't the laughter that was the problem. It was the dark cloud that would hang over her friend and co-star, threatening the very foundation of the sandbox she'd worked so hard to build. The biggest clash wasn't about a forgotten line or a joke. It was a moment of disrespect that forced Carol to stop being the playful ringmaster and become the boss. The incident, which she wrote about in her 2016 memoir, happened during the 7th season. The guests were singer Petula Clark and Tim Conway, 2 people Carol described as the nicest people in showbiz. For some reason, Harvey Corman was in a terrible mood all day. Dressed in an Elvis costume for a sketch, he was, as Carol wrote, scowling at everybody. His bad energy crossed a line when he was openly rude to both Conway and Clark. For Carol, that was the ultimate sin. Her show was a haven where guests were treated with kindness and respect. As she put it, "I can take it if you step on me, but you don't step on our guests." Seeing the harmony on her set destroyed, Carol confronted Harvey in his dressing room. He shot back that his mood was none of her business. Carol stood her ground, telling him that issues between her stars and stars were absolutely her business. The argument got heated, and Harvey told her he'd just as soon go home and never come back, before backing her out of the room and slamming the door in her face. Stunned, Carol walked straight to a phone, called Harvey's agent, and fired him. Walked back to Harvey's dressing room to deliver the news. "Well, you got your wish," she said calmly. "You were rude to our guests. I can't work like that, so if you want off, you're free to go." The reality hit Harvey like a ton of bricks. The anger vanished, replaced by panic. He realized he'd made a huge mistake and asked if there was anything he could do to fix it. Carol, holding all the cards, laid out her terms. He had to leave his moods at home. "This coming Monday, I want to see you cheerful," she commanded. "It would tickle me pink to see you skipping around and hear you whistling in the hall." The next Monday, as Carol walked down the hall, the elevator doors opened, and out stepped Harvey. He broke into a huge grin and began skipping and whistling his way down the corridor. Carol doubled over with laughter. The crisis was over. She had a plaque made for his dressing room door that read, "Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky." This was the peak of the tension. The him she hated wasn't Harvey Corman, the friend and brilliant comedian. It was the dark, moody persona that sometimes took over. She had faced down the biggest threat to her show and won. But the underlying issue, Harvey's insecurity and his desire for more, was still there. The truce held for a few more seasons. The Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky plaque was a funny reminder of who was in charge. The on-screen magic continued with Conway, now a full-time cast member, carrying on his comedic assault on Harvey. But the core tension was still there. Despite his success, Harvey Corman reportedly grew tired of being a supporting player. He wanted his own name on the marquee. So at the end of the show's 10th season in 1977, Harvey did what he'd threatened to do for years. He left The Carol Burnett Show. ABC had offered him his own sitcom, The Harvey Corman Show. For Carol, it was a massive blow. He wasn't fired this time. He left on his own terms to chase a dream she surely understood. The departure was friendly, but it changed the show's DNA. Carol brought in Dick Van Dyke to fill the void, but the chemistry just wasn't there. The show's 11th and final season is often seen by fans as a shadow of its former self, proof of just how vital Harvey had been. Meanwhile, Harvey's bid for solo stardom didn't go as planned. The Harvey Corman Show was canceled after just 5 episodes. He was, by his own admission, a brilliant second banana who wasn't comfortable carrying a show on his own. "Maybe I'll always be second banana because I'm afraid of the responsibility," he once said. The man who left one of TV's biggest shows for a bigger spotlight found it was colder and lonelier than he expected. But this professional split led to a heartwarming reunion. Freed from the power dynamic of Carol's show, Harvey Corman and Tim Conway discovered something amazing. They were a perfect comedic duo. They began touring together in a 2-man show, performing sketches that recaptured their iconic magic for well over a decade. They traveled the country, playing to sold-out crowds. Their act was a celebration of their shared history and the deep affection that was always underneath the friction. They couldn't work together in Carol's sandbox, but they built their own. This final chapter proved their on-screen rivalry was really a kind of love language, a unique and hilarious expression of friendship. So, did Carol Burnett truly hate Harvey Corman? After peeling back the layers of laughter and legend, the answer is a clear no. but the title points to a more complex and fascinating truth. Carol Burnett didn't hate Harvey Corman, the man. She cherished him as a friend and revered him as a pillar of her show. What she couldn't stand, what pushed her to the limit, was the turmoil his insecurity created. She hated the dark moods that could poison her set. She despised the disrespect he showed to guests, which violated her most sacred rule. The defining rivalry of the show wasn't Carol versus Harvey. It was Harvey's disciplined professionalism versus Tim Conway's chaotic brilliance. Harvey was the battleground, and Carol was the commander trying to keep the war from tearing her show apart. She was the producer, the star, the friend, and on one unforgettable day, the boss who had to make the toughest call of her career. Their story is a powerful look at the messy, brilliant, and often contradictory nature of creative partnership. The very friction that caused so much backstage drama was the engine that produced comedy gold on screen. Harvey's frustration was the perfect canvas for Tim's absurdity. Without Harvey desperately trying to hold it together, Tim's chaos would have had nothing to play against. In the end, the legacy of The Carol Burnett Show isn't about hate, but about a unique and volatile chemistry, lovingly managed by its namesake. Carol Burnett built a sandbox for geniuses to play in, and sometimes they threw sand. But through it all, she knew the man she sometimes wanted to throttle was the same man she couldn't imagine doing the show without. Their story is a reminder that in comedy, like in life, the line between love, frustration, and pure laughter is often wonderfully and hilariously blurred. What do you think? Was Carol right to fire Harvey? And what's your favorite Tim Conway and Harvey Corman sketch? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing from you, and as always, thanks for watching.